Good morning, everyone. My name is Mero C. Fundador, and I, along with my group, will be discussing the romantic interlude in Japan, 1888, the chapter 12 of Rizal's life and works. This is one of the nicest interludes in Rizal's life because he spent 1 month and a half in the land of the cherry blossoms from February 28 to April 13, 1888. The natural beauty of Japan, the pleasant manners of the Japanese people, and the magnificent shrines enthralled Rizal. Furthermore, he also fell in love with a Japanese girl whose beauty filled his sorrowing heart with joy and romance. Her real name was Sekoi Osoi, and Rizal referred to her as Osi-san. However, fate cut short Rizal's pleasant days in Japan. He had to forgo his personal happiness in order to continue his efforts for the redemption of his enslaved people. And this chapter will begin with Rizal's arrival in Yokohama. Rizal arrived at Yokohama on February 28, 1888, early in the morning of Tuesday. He then registered at the Grand Hotel before traveling to Tokyo and booking a room at the Tokyo Hotel, where he remained from March 2 to 7. Tokyo left such an impression on Rizal that he remarked in a letter to Professor Blumentritt that it was more expensive than Paris, and the walls are built in a cyclopean manner, and that the streets are broad and spacious. Rizal was astonished by how well informed the Japanese people were. He claimed that they had a great deal of understanding and were really respectful. He also added that Japanese people were extremely patient and hardworking, and according to Rizal, the Japanese people are extremely educated and knowledgeable as well. That would be all for my part. The following section of the chapter 12 will be handled by my co-reporter.
Good day, I am Chara Delman, and today I will be discussing Rizal's arrival in Tokyo. Shortly after Rizal's arrival in Tokyo, he was visited at his hotel by Juan Perez Caballero, who is a secretary of the Spanish legation. He was invited to live at the Spanish legation. Then he and Perez Caballero became good friends. In a letter to Blumentritt, he described the Spanish diplomat as a young, fine, and excellent writer, and an able diplomat who had traveled much. During his first day in Tokyo, Rizal was embarrassed because he did not know the Japanese language. He had a hard time shopping and going around, for he could not be understood, and some Japanese children laughed at him. Thus, he wrote to Blumentritt saying, "Here you have your friend, Rizal the wonder of the Japanese, who has the face of a Japanese, but does not speak Japanese. On the streets, when I go shopping, people look at me and ill-educated children laugh because I speak such a strange language. In Tokyo, very few persons speak English, but in Yokohama, many speak it. Some believe I am an Europeanized Japanese who does not want to be taken as such." Rizal made the decision to learn Japanese in order to prevent additional humiliation. Being a born linguist, he was able to speak it within a few days. He also studied judo, arts, music, and Japanese play, which is kabuki, and a self-defense Japanese art. He also explored Japan's lovely villages, shrines, libraries, art galleries, and museums. And that is all for my part. Thank you for listening, and once again, I am Chara Belman.
Hi, I'm Danica Lois Cargar, and now I will be discussing Rizal and the Tokyo musicians. While Rizal was roaming around the streets of Tokyo, it was March 1888. So it was a beautiful spring afternoon, and he was wondering why there were so many people. And then, as he was walking or roaming around the park, he heard the classic work of Strauss. So he was amazed, and he wondered how these Japanese people could have assimilated the modern European music. So after the band stopped playing, he heard them talking. So he was surprised that some of them were talking in Filipino. So he approached them and asked they if where they are from. So the musicians answered that they are from Filipino, which also they were surprised because of Rizal, and then that they were just only playing the secondary instruments.
So, hi everyone, my name is Valeria Esporas, and today I will be talking about Rizal's impression of Japan. So, when Rizal went to Japan, he was favorably impressed by the country. He is a keen observer to places where he goes, so he usually takes copious notes of the life, custom, and culture of the people in the place where he goes. And he's just not someone who is light-headed and who merely enjoys the attractive sights that are appealing to the senses. So when Rizal went to Japan, these are the things that he was favorably impressed in. So first is the beauty of the country, meaning the flowers, the streams, the mountains, and also the scenic panoramas, the cleanliness, rather, politeness, and industry of the Japanese people, the picturesque dress and simple charms of the Japanese people, the few thieves of Japan, meaning houses there are open day and night, and in hotel rooms you can leave your money safely on the tables. And also lastly is the beggars are rarely seen in Japan streets, unlike in Manila. However, there was one thing that Rizal did not like in Japan. So as seen on the picture, this is the popular mode of transportation in Japan, where it is drawn by rickshaws drawn by men. Since Rizal has a sensitive soul, upon seeing these people, he felt disgusted in the way they were employed, since the men were treated as horses. So that ends my part. I'm now giving the floor to the next reporter for the next topic. Thank you so much for listening.
One spring afternoon, a few days after he had moved to the Spanish legation in the Asabu district of Tokyo, Rizal saw a pretty Japanese girl walking past the legation gate. So, being a man with an eye for feminine beauty, he was attracted by her regal loveliness and charm, and he craved to meet her. But how? Rizal made inquiries among the legation employees and learned from one of them, a Japanese gardener, that she was Seiko Usui. The following afternoon, Rizal and the Japanese gardener waited at the legation gate and watched for the girl. As she approached, he took off his hat and politely introduced himself. Seiko-san was mildly amused at the gallant gentleman from the Philippines who spoke in halting Japanese, and the two then conversed in both English and French. Since the first meeting, Rizal and Usei-san, as Rizal called her, met almost daily, and together they visited the interesting spots. Both found happiness in each other's company, and affinity of interest in the arts paved the way for their romance. Rizal saw in lovely Usei-san the qualities of his ideal womanhood, while Usei-san reciprocated his affection, for it was the first time her heart palpitated with joy to see a man of gallantry, dignity, courtesy, and versatile talents. Usei-san helped Rizal in many ways. More than a sweetheart, she was his guide, interpreter, and tutor. Usei-san's beauty and affection almost tempted Rizal to settle down in Japan, and he was offered a good job at the Spanish legation. If he were a man of lesser heroic mold, of lesser willpower, he would have lived permanently in Japan, and happily at that, with Usei-san. But then, the world in general, and the Philippines in particular, would have lost a Rizal.
1888, Rizal boarded the Belgique, an English steamer, at Yokohama bound for the United States. He left Japan with a heavy heart, for he knew that he would never again see this beautiful land of the cherry blossoms and his beloved Osei-san. Truly, his sojourn in Japan for 45 days was one of the happiest interludes in his life. The next one is Osei-san after Rizal's departure. So broken-hearted by the departure of Rizal, the first man to capture her heart, Osei-san mourned for a long time that loss of her lover. Eventually, she became resigned to her fate, cherishing unto death the nostalgic memories of her romance with Rizal. So about 1897, a year after Rizal's execution, she married Mr. Alfred Charlton, a British teacher of the chemistry of the Pierce School in Tokyo. Their wedlock was blessed by only one child, a daughter named Yuriko. Osei-san died at the age of 80 on May 1, 1947. She was buried at Zoshigawa Cemetery. So that's it for my part. Thank you for listening.
Hi, it's me again, Danica Lois Seekergar, and now I will discuss the voyage of Rizal across the Pacific Ocean. So after his heart was broken, he traveled to the United States. So he traveled across the Pacific Ocean, which he enjoyed it because it was very pleasant. So while he was on the ship, he met the semi-American family, which namely Mr. Rinaldo Turner and his wife Emma Jackson. So while he was on the ship, one of the children of Mr. Rinaldo Turner and Mrs. Emma Jackson asked Rizal if he knows a person named Riccal, which wrote the novel Noli Me Tangere. So Rizal answered that he is that Riccal. So that young boy was very rushed to his mother and informed her that Rizal is their fellow passenger, and also they feel proud that they are like traveling with like a celebrity because Rizal is a famous person that time.
I am Michael Bensdano, and for the last topic of this chapter, I am assigned to report the Rizal or the topic of Rizal and Techo. So, when Rizal traveling across the Pacific, there is another passenger named Techo Suhiro whom he befriended on board, which is the Belgique. So this Japanese man named Techo Suhiro was a fighting Japanese journalist, novelist, and champion of human rights. So he was forced by the Japanese government to leave the country, just like Rizal was compelled to leave the Philippines by the Spanish authorities. So at the beginning of the voyage from the Yokohama, Techo was miserably alone because he only knew his own native language, which is the Japanese, and he could not communicate with the other passengers. So what Rizal did, he since he knew different languages, including the Japanese, so he acted as his interpreter along their trip or along their long trip to Yokohama, uh, to San Francisco, until they will reach the London and parted their ways. So Rizal and Techo were both valiant patriots, implacable foes of injustices and tyranny. So they were both men of peace, using their trenchant pens as formidable weapons to fight their people's welfare and happiness. So Rizal told his life life story to Techo about his mission to emancipate his oppressions or emancipate his oppressed people from Spanish tyranny and of the persecutions which he and his family suffered from the vindictive Spanish officials and the bad friars, causing him to flee to the foreign countries, which or where he could freely carry his libertarian libertarian activities. So on April 13 to December 11, 1888, so Techo came to admire Rizal for or whose patriotism and magnificent talents greatly fascinated him and influenced him to fortify his own crusade for human rights in his own country. So next slide please. So shortly after his return to Japan, Techo published his travel diary, which contains his impressions of Rizal. So he then entered into politics and was elected as a member of the lower house of the first imperial diet. So it is called as the Japanese parliament. So where he carried his on his fight for human rights. So the following year, he published the political novel entitles Nankai no Daiharan, or in the English term it is translated as Storm Over the South Sea, which resembles Rizal's No Limi Tangere in plot. So so next slide please. Alright, so he then published another novel entitled O Onabara, or which translated as The Big Ocean, which was similar to El Filibusterismo. So while he is still a member of the Imperial Diet, so Techo died of a heart attack on Tokyo in February 1890, 10 months before Rizal's execution. So his age at that time was 49 years old. So again, Techo was died because of the heart attack, and before 10 months before Rizal's execution. All right. So next slide please. Alright, so that ends our report for this chapter entitled Romantic Interlude in Japan in the year 1888. So we hope that we were able to impart knowledge on this, on the life and works of Rizal. So again, this is the Group 2, and thank you very much for listening.